Hey everybody, happy Halloween. Let's talk about the big five. Obviously there's a video I posted that tells you about what each of the big five factors means. And an easy acronym, and I'm sure they did it in the video, to remember the five is OCEAN. O for openness, C, conscientiousness, E, extroversion, A, agreeableness, and neuroticism. I want to talk about those and also provide you some information about the potential use that you could have of the information um, contained in your test scores. Obviously, if you took the test, if you were honest on the test, it could be a very valuable piece of information for you in terms of careers, in terms of romantic partners, friends, kinds of situations that you would thrive in, kinds of situations that you wouldn't thrive in, things like that. The most important score is the E score. E is where you get your energy from in life. And basically, a high E person draws energy from other people. They like a busy social schedule. They like having lots of friends. They generally have an easy time making friends. They generally talk to everybody they come in contact with. And so a high E person going into 7-Eleven is going to have a conversation with somebody before they leave, even if it's just the cashier. Low E person, it's not that they dislike people, it's that they're not energized by other people. They're energized by being alone. They're energized more by small get togethers with intimate friends, things like that. They can enjoy large group activities. They can enjoy having a busy social schedule, but it exhausts them. So a low E person, which would be an introvert, if they've ever had a busy social week, by the end of the week, they just want to kind of hibernate at home for the weekend. And again, these scores, you want to also interpret them in combination with one another. So a low E, low O person is a person that can kind of get lost in the shuffle. They like routine, they like the familiar, and they aren't apt to expand their social circle beyond the people they already know. So that's E. O, since I brought it up, is openness. Very, very important for a lot of different aspects of life, especially romantic relationships. High O people love change. They love the new thing. They love variety. Low O people, it's the opposite. They like familiar. They like a routine. They like the predictable. They tend to like to plan everything. High O people don't. High O people are bigger risk takers. They're much more likely, for example, to experiment with drugs and to gamble and to engage in any kind of risk-taking behavior. Low O folks, they like to play it safe. They're conservative, not necessarily politically, although they usually are, by the way. There's a very strong correlation between high O and liberal and low O and conservative. They like the tried and true. The low O model is if it's not broken, don't fix it. The high O model is if it's not broken, break it. See if you can make it better. High O people move their furniture around in their apartment and their home. They change their wardrobe. They change their hairstyle. They love change. A high O person is not a great candidate to sit behind the same desk, sit in the same cubicle every day. Low O person, a great candidate for that kind of thing. So in terms of relationships, in terms of dating relationships and romantic relationships, high O and low O people can have a really tough time. High O people are very spontaneous, impulsive. Low O people are the opposite. So planning activities that are going to be mutually beneficial can be a real challenge in a relationship between a high O and a low O person. And by the way, a really nice exercise you can do with this test is have somebody else fill it out. Obviously it doesn't take you very long to either take it or score it. Have somebody that you think knows you really well do the test on you. In other words, complete it as to how they see you, score it, and compare their scores to yours, and look at where there are big differences. So that's O, E, C, conscientiousness. High conscientiousness, driven, hardworking. They like to do things right. They pay attention to detail. If they start something, they finish it. Low C, the opposite. they have a tough time getting motivated. They have a tough time starting. They tend to be procrastinators. They don't like detail. They're more big picture people. Low O people can really be driven, or I'm sorry, low C people can really be driven, but they really need to be passionate about what they're doing. Whereas high C people, no matter what job they take, they do it well because they see it as a reflection on them. And they like to have things done in a certain order, and they like to develop systems and all those kinds of things. They tend to be far neater in terms of their environment than low C people. High C people do well in college. You know, if you're a high C person, you're going to have an easier time doing well in college because you're naturally driven in terms of those kinds of tasks. So that is C. And by the way, high C people tend to be more conservative. Low C people tend to be more liberal in terms of political worldview. So that's O, C, E, A, agreeableness. High agreeableness folks, they love harmony. They crave harmony. They are great to have as friends because they are always trying to make you happy. They will do what you want to do in terms of a night out. They're always just trying to make everybody happy. They love harmony. They hate conflict. They avoid conflict like the plague. They even if the conflict doesn't involve them, it makes them very uncomfortable. High A people, if they order food in a restaurant and it's served to them and it's not exactly how they wanted it cooked, they'll eat it anyway. They won't send it back. They buy things in stores. Unless it's a lot of money and it doesn't work right, they're just going to throw it away or put it in their basement. They're not going to bring it back. They have a real problem with assertiveness, whereas low A people have no problem with assertiveness, have no problem expressing their opinion, have no problem saying this is what I want to do. And because of that, they can come across as arrogant, opinionated. They can be tough to be friends with because they tend to not be very flexible in terms of what kinds of activities they do. They're not super concerned about pleasing you. They will speak their mind, and if they disagree with you, that doesn't make them uncomfortable at all. They're kind of like a bull in a china shop when it comes to their opinion. Low A people are the people that will always say, well, I just tell it like it is, or I just speak my mind and that kind of thing. By the way, nobody tells it like it is. The best we can do is tell it like we see it, our own perception. Nobody has a claim to the objective truth, despite the fact that people will make that claim all the time. N, last one. High N, high emotionality. Low N, low emotionality. High N people are emotional. They're intense. They tend to be up and down. When they're happy, they're super happy. But on the downside, when they're sad, they're very sad or they're very anxious. High-end people are much more vulnerable to having mental health problems with depression, problems with anxiety, things like that. So it's kind of a trade-off. Intensity for kind of a little bit of an emotional roller coaster ride. High-end people take things personally. They're sensitive. Things stick to them. A lot of how they feel is based on what happens during that particular day. You can always kind of tell how a high-end person is doing because they're very emotional and they kind of wear their heart on their sleeves. So they give off a lot of nonverbals in terms of facial expression, how much they talk, don't talk, etc. Low-end people are the no drama. I think Barack Obama, in terms of people that everybody knows, would be a great example to me of a low-end person. No drama. Very steady. Same kind of emotional attitude, whether things are going great or whether they're going poorly. On the downside, the low-end people can be a little bit oblivious to how other people are doing around them, particularly if it's somebody close to them. If you're a partner with a low-end person, you've had a really tough day. When you come home and they're there, they're not just going to naturally pick up on that. You're going to have to tell them you had a bad day. So a few things about the overall test also I wanted to make sure that you guys knew. The first scores you want to pay attention to are the really high or really low scores. What that means is for you in those domains, that's how you're going to act in every situation. Those are the traits that are strongest and most typical of you. They're what make you most unique. If you scored in the average range on any of the traits, which means you can go either way, for you in that aspect of life means that the situation governs your behavior. So in some situations, you'll behave one way, in some situations, another way. If you were average, for example, an extroversion, with some people, you're very outgoing. You're kind of the life of the party. And with others, you're kind of on the periphery, kind of quiet. High or average on A. Sometimes you stand up for yourself, and in other situations, you don't. So that's one way to look at it. And again, I encourage you, there's a ton of information online on what these scores mean in terms of jobs, careers, relationships, likely problems, all kinds of things. And so take advantage of that. This test is a very valid test. Even though this Big Five test that you took is much shorter than the real Big Five test, it does correlate quite well to the scores you would get on the big test. And it's about you. And these are things, by the way, that aren't going to change. Your scores on this test, if you take this test in another 10 years, your scores are not going to change. Now, they may change a little bit, but they won't change in any statistically significant manner. These things don't change much over time. How you channel your traits into your behavior can change if you become aware of it and you develop a plan and you implement the plan. That can change. But your natural tendencies pretty much don't. In fact, over time, they tend to get more extreme in terms of the research. So that's kind of it for the Big Five. Make sure, again, you watch the other video I posted. It's not my own video, but it's an excellent video telling you about the traits. And the Big Five is the most universally used, accepted personality test out there right now. And one of the really great things about studying personality theory these days is in the last 75 years or so, there have been a number of wonderful tests designed to measure traits, because personality psychology is all about what makes you unique, what makes you different from someone else. And here we're talking again about typical ways of thinking, feeling, and behaving. That's how we define personality. All right? Okay. So hopefully you enjoyed this video, you learned from it, and I will see you soon in my next video.